The putrid stench of grease and fuel stung Jack's nose as they approached the seedy-looking truck stop, and the rest of the group fared little better. Chio quickly raised her cane and expended some of her power, and suddenly the air cleared, and a cool breeze began to soothe Jack's nostrils. Perhaps not the best reason to use that ability, Chio shrugged. But it's been a long night and a long walk along the highway. Like this place or not, we need to take a break. It had indeed been quite the trek. Ever since they had shaken the Mirrodin troops and began walking several miles along the highway, they had often needed to take cover, as several squadrons of troop ships flew over them at low altitude. Sephi had been curious as to the state of the current conflict. However, she had not been able to access any local networks that could tell her anything. This place looks like a complete shithole, Nika growled. I don't like it. Neither do I, Allura agreed. However, Chio is right, we need to take a break. Sephi, how long will it take you to hook us up with a ride? Jack asked. If we need to take a break, I think we should keep it short. Shouldn't be long, Sephi grinned. Some of these trucks are ancient looking and should be easy to slice into, but I'll need to be in closer proximity to the drivers to check their routes. I can change them to suit our needs, but if I change it too much, they'll know something's up. Not much we can do about it then. Jack nodded in acceptance. But stay alert. This place definitely doesn't look safe. Woof! Dante barked his agreement. The group cautiously made their way across the dimly lit car park, their senses on high alert for any danger. The exterior of the truck stop looked poorly maintained, with old, crumpled brick walls that barely held up the patchwork, leaky tiled roof. Outside of the entrance was the sole working neon sign, which flicked sporadically, casting dull hues of red and green on the churned-up tarmac. As they tentatively entered, Jack and Dante leading, they were immediately greeted by the loud rumbling of generators that sputtered and hummed, mixing with the sounds of distant battle coming from all over the city. He was glad that Chio had cast the air bubble around them all, as the haze of cigar smoke all around them was heavy in the air. Combined with the nasty-looking stains littering the floor and walls, he knew that the Ilithi had made the right call. He just hoped they wouldn't catch any nasty disease just by being nearby. The low, partially collapsed ceiling gave the entry hall a claustrophobic feel, amplified by the hushed chatter of several patrons from the cheap-looking diner within, dimly lit by a few still flickering emitters surrounding a rusted ceiling fan that looked like it hadn't worked in decades. Let's get a table in the corner over there, Allura whispered. Out of the way and with a wall behind us? Yup, Nika agreed. I'll start my thing in a minute once we sit down. Just need to get ready, Sephi told them as they made their way over. Let's make this a quick visit, Chio suggested, sounding worried as she noted the other patrons casting leery gazes their way. Dante growled and snapped at a heavily tattooed man who tried to reach out a scarred hand towards Sephi, who pulled it back with a low, nasty chuckle as Nika thumbed the holster for her shotgun. Shucking their bags off, the group sat at their table, having a good view of the rest of the diner. I'm going to order us a round of drinks, Allura quietly told the rest of them as she got up. We've got to at least try to blend in. Allura, have you seen the prices? Chio asked. They're extortionate at best. Maybe, Allura agreed, but I'd rather not risk causing a scene, and we need the energy boost. Jack, could you go with her? Nika asked. Just in case? Of course, Jack nodded as he got to his feet, following the Eladri. Hey, girlie! A shady-looking avian called over to Allura as they passed by their table of card-playing thugs. What brings you and your cute friends here tonight? My lads and I were thinking about getting some company. Fuck off, Jack growled. Or maybe you want to try sucking your friends off with no teeth. You hear that, lads? The avian turned to them with a cocky smile, before it was immediately wiped from his face, as Jack's gun was quickly drawn and aimed right at his head. I think they heard. Jack bluntly told the group. "You gonna give me a problem?" "No," the avian hissed. "Good." Jack nodded, as he allowed Allura to lead him away. "Thanks, Jack, but let's try and avoid a fight for now," Allura whispered as they made it up to the bar, manned by a burly, grumpy-looking reptilian server with ugly tattoos that stared down at them with piggy black eyes. "What?" they rudely snarled at Allura as they wiped a grimy rag across the counter. 5 soy calves, please," Allura smiled diplomatically. 7 silver corvin coin each, the server growled. "Really?" Allura began. "The sign over there says 4. "And I said 7, the server growled. "Perhaps you didn't hear the lady," Jack began, before Allura gently placed a hand on his arm to stop him. "Very well, my mistake," Allura nodded, handing over a credit chip with the money. "Here." The server snatched it from her without a further word, turning around to a stained jug on the counter behind him, and started to pour the mixture into 5 poorly cleaned mugs, before popping them onto a tray and roughly shoving it towards Jack. "Pleasure doing business," Jack sarcastically responded as he took the tray back. "Alright, I have some good possible hits," Sephi told them once they sat back down, "but the local network is as bad as you can imagine. I'll need to do a deep slice, but it might take me some time." "You want to use the facilities first?" Chio asked, guessing what Sephi was hinting at. "Makes sense to do so while you're here." "Best to go now when you lack bodily functions in cyberspace," Sephi rationalized. "Someone mind coming with me?" "Sure," Jack shrugged, having just sat down. "Though I won't follow you into the ladies," he grinned. "Heh, that's fine. As long as you're close enough," the scritter chuckled, as she took a quick swig of her soy calf. "Fuck!" She cringed in disgust. Jack quickly downed the brown-black sludge and immediately recoiled. "Yeah, that tastes like shit," he grunted, as he tried to ignore the metallic tar-like aftertaste at the back of his mouth. "Shall we go?" "At least it will give us the energy boost we need to keep going." Chio cringed as she took a sip, though I think I prefer Nika's drink powders. "Yeah, that would have been a smart idea to take a few." Nika shrugged, embarrassed. "But I didn't think it would get this bad, and I've barely been able to get any more due to the sheer demand after the clown attacks. I figured the energy drinks and cereal bars should have been enough, and we even packed extra." "It got us most of the way," Allura sighed, patting Nika on the shoulder. "And this has been far from an ordinary job night." "Shall we?" Jack asked Sephi. "Yeah, let's go," the scritter nodded, as they both got up and headed towards the bathrooms. Heading down the cracked tiles on the main corridor further into the building led Jack to believe that the truck stop had once been more like a roadside service station from home, with space for a few fast food restaurants, coffee stores, and maybe a newsagent. But whatever had once inhabited the place during better times had long since fallen into decrepit ruin, with the spaces used to dump various rubbish from the only available establishment. One of the rooms had several generators operating, which was the source of the endless humming throughout the complex, which Jack guessed had something to do with the refueling process for the vehicles. Eventually they found the toilets, covered in peeling paint and graffiti, and Jack could only imagine the stench from years of neglect, silently thanking Chio's air bubble that covered each member of the group. "You actually want to use these?" Jack asked with raised eyebrows, as he leaned on the wall outside. "Can't you just go into a bush or something?" "Wish I could," Sephi sighed with a knowing raise of the eyebrows. "Unfortunately, no can do." "Ah." Jack realized the problem. "I'll wait here. Better make it quick." The door to the women's restroom creaked open, revealing a cramped space that was barely illuminated by a single cracked light hanging from the ceiling. Sephi tried her best not to look at the puddles of mysterious liquids scattered in various corners, as she tried to find a stool that was still usable, passing two that had long rotted and collapsed on themselves. "This was a bad idea," the scritter thought to herself. Says it all about tonight that this is the first place I feel even remotely safe enough to take a shit. The girls all packed tissues, and a few small packets of septic gel at all times just in case, for which Sephi was thankful for, as she opened the least run-down stall and almost gagged at the horrible sight within. Sighing in resignation, she resolved herself to get her business over and done with, as quickly as possible. Silently, she cursed herself. She was the reason they took this job, and almost got them all killed at Scraphaven, and they were still all in danger because of her. How could she have been so stupid? There must have been something she could have done to check the client for a double cross. The others have always been smarter than she was, so she knew they would have done something different that wouldn't have got them baited into such a bad trap. They all knew the risks with the lifestyle they had been forced into, but if the worst should happen, and it was her fault. Her feelings must have somehow shown, as Jack's eyes went wide the moment he saw her. "Hey, what happened?" he asked, placing a comforting hand on Sephi's shoulder. "Nothing," she sniffed. "Just everything catching up to me, I guess." "Not your fault." Jack reassuringly pulled her into a side hug, looking around to confirm they were alone. "We got into this mess as a group, and as a group we'll get out of it, but we've got to be quick." "Yeah, still got school. We gotta..." "Not that." Jack shook his head, hands beside his weapons. "I have a really bad feeling about this place right now. Something's up." "I feel the same," Sephi agreed. "I'll try and be as quick as I can getting us a ride, but this local network will slow me down." "Is simply walking the rest of the way not an option?" Jack asked with a raised eyebrow. "Comes with greater risk," the scritter sighed as they started heading back. "Any moment we could get caught up in the corporate war, and you saw how trigger-happy some of them are. Getting out of the danger zone as quickly as possible is better, even if this place is seedy. At least these assholes haven't attacked us yet." "Yet," Jack emphasized with a quiet whisper, as they made it back to the diner. "Stay frosty." "What the hell does that even mean?" Sephi snorted in amusement as they returned to the others. "Ready?" Allura whispered to Sephi, who nodded. "Nothing special, just get us a ride." "On it. Can I lean on you, Jack?" the scritter asked, unusually seriously for her. "My body is going to go limp, so you need to make it look natural." "Sure." Jack whispered his agreement, as he took stock of several sets of eyes across the bar looking at them. "Is there any way I could wake you up or something in an emergency?" "Yep," the scritter grinned as she leaned against him. "Just keep an open comlink call with me." Before Jack could ask any further questions, Sephi closed her eyes and her form went limp, forcing him to quickly put his arm around her to stop her falling over. Her perception of time will make it sound all slow and muddled to her, but she has a text-to-speech program that'll inform her of what is being said. Chio smiled as she explained it to Jack. "Once she gets the message, she will take several seconds to return to us." "Unless she's directly disconnected," Nika whispered. "But I really wouldn't recommend that unless there's no other choice. Dump shock is a bitch to deal with." "I remember the last time she had dump shock," Allura shivered. "A blackout took out the local matrix, and she got badly hit by the effects." "Let's hope that doesn't happen here," Jack quietly replied, as he looked at the comatose scritter. "So, how long does she normally take?" Jack asked after about 10 minutes. Though the diner had quietened down during the time they had waited, as various patrons left and moved about, that did not make Jack feel any better, as he could still see the malevolent stares sent their way. "Shouldn't take too much longer," Nika whispered back unsurely. "And we've got to be ready to move the moment she gets us something." "Jack, how bad was the bathroom when you and Sephi went?" Chio asked, a conflicted look on her face. "I hate to say it, but we should probably use the facilities while we have the chance." "I intend to go too," Allura whispered. "We'll need to fill up our water as well. I doubt the quality is good, but I have purification tablets." "I can assist with my new abilities," Chio added. "All right, but everyone takes their stuff with them," Nika replied, in a way that would allow for no debate. "I'm coming with you. Dante can stay here." "All right," Jack nodded. "You'll stay on comms?" "Yup," Beale nodded, as they quickly set off. "Stay with me, Dante," Jack muttered to the dog, continuing to discreetly observe the shady patrons of the diner, as he kept his hand close to his gun. He hoped he was just being paranoid, and that the others would return soon, but despite his efforts to try and calm himself down, the heavy sense of unease was still palpable. He had learned to trust his instincts. "Nika, talk to me," Jack subtly muttered under his breath, which was still more than enough to be picked up on subvocal comms. There was no reply, except for some static. "Alora? Chio?" Jack called, again with no response. Sephi had said that the network wasn't the best. Maybe their comms were simply muted. Dante let out a low growl, clearly not liking this either. Jack knew that the dog had good instincts for sensing imminent danger, though this wasn't as pronounced as when the clowns attacked Clan Barzan's party. Again, Jack fought with himself for what to do. He looked around at the room, and could see the furtive exchanges of whispered conversations as several of the other patrons snuck glances at them. Others looked around nervously, from them to the other groups, to them again. Finally, he could see one man in a booth covering his mouth, but not subtly enough that he could hide the comlink he was talking into, looking nervous as he subtly kept his eyes on them. "Sephi," Jack whispered into his comlink, as he felt the adrenaline start to swell within him. "We need to go, now." "What?" Sephi began a few seconds later, as Jack slowly got to his feet, which began to be matched by a few of the other diners, before the sound of a gunshot rang out from outside. Jack turned slightly to register the direction of the noise, as Dante's growl increased in volume. Sensing rapid movement out of the corner of his eye, Jack snapped back round in an instant, immediately raised his plasma rifle, and opened fire on full auto, melting a bunch of charred black and green holes into the torso of the diner that had tried to draw their own weapon first. His face gave an expression of shocked surprise, before Jack's continuous fire dissolved their head. Jack kept firing a storm of plasma fire, maintaining his advantage, forcing the diners to duck into cover, before he booted their table over to provide some for them. "Shit!" Sephi cursed as she ducked down, still disoriented from coming back into meat space. "We've got to get to the others," Jack told them both, as Dante shot out a bolt of chain lightning that took out the group that had bothered him and Alora. "Pin them down!" the barman yelled, as he lay suppressing fire with his shotgun. "How long?" "Almost here," another voice gleefully called out, before he was silenced, as Jack, still squeezing the trigger of his plasma rifle, obliterated their molded wooden panel, holding up their cheap seat, and blew the cocky man to pieces. "Dante, go help the others," Jack ordered, quickly ejecting the battery of his plasma rifle and smacking in a new one far quicker than their assailants thought possible, as two were caught out to try and shoot Jack, before they were blasted to superheated pieces for their trouble. Dante dashed out of the diner, while Jack pushed forward, Sephi covering him from the overturned table, sending controlled bursts of plasma fire to avoid the non-combatants, who were hunkering down in cover, low to the ground in panic. "Ah, fucking you liffy bitch!" the cruel-looking avian spat, as Chio slammed him against the back of the bathroom stall wall, smashing the porcelain of the already run-down toilet and cracking the tiles of the wall behind. She had to dodge and focus her power on a barrier, as the man quickly brought up a rapid-fire pistol and sprayed it at her, forcing Chio to deflect the laser fire to the floor. Another man, a Zarek, rushed out of a stall further down to grab at Alora, who desperately tried to fend the reptilian off with flaming hands, scratching at the man's eyes as he roared in pain. The Eladri desperately tried to break his grip and put some distance between him as the man's claws dug into her side. He leered at her with a lecherous smile, before suddenly jerking back in shock as Alora's knife slid in between his ribs. As he loosened his grip on reflex, Alora shuffled back and intensified the flames of her hands, before shooting it out in an explosion that knocked him back. Quickly, Before he could recover, Allura pulled out a small seed she had picked up on her way to school, throwing it at the man as she activated a spell, causing the seed to quickly grow and morph into entangling vines. "Allura, you alright?" Chio asked, as they heard Nika shooting from behind them. "I'm good," Allura shuddered, after her assailant was well and truly secured by her entanglement spell, before the Alagi then followed through by conjuring a spear of light and mercilessly stabbed him through the head. "Hiding in the damn toilets waiting for us." "Apologies for not detecting their auras in time. I did not see that coming either," the Alethi replied. "Creeps, yes, but nobody brazen enough to attack us." "You two, you good?" Nika called from the corridor, where she had already dispatched 2 others. Another was taking pot shots at her from behind a concrete pillar, so upon checking her shotgun's energy levels, Nika quickly burst out of cover and purposefully moved in an arc around the pillar, refusing to let up with her suppressing fire until she got the hostile in the leg, causing him to stumble out and get blasted by further shots. She checked her corners for any others, but found none as her friends emerged from the bathroom. "We've got to get to the others." Suddenly, they heard several loud barks from further down the corridor where they had come from, as Dante bounded up to them, looking around for any trouble, and being confused on not finding any. Meeting him part way, they could see a smoking body lying on the ground, completely charred and unrecognizable. "Woof!" the dog barked, ready for orders. "I believe Jack sent him here to help us," Chio mused. "We're okay here, Dante," Allura smiled. "Let's go back and help Jack and Sephi." Dashing down the corridor, with Nika and Dante leading, they saw several figures rush out of the diner, heading for the front entrance. "Non-combatants," Chio warned them, as they heard the ignition for at least one of the trucks outside start up. "We should leave them be." "Agreed. I'm not shooting civvies even if they are ugly looking," Nika acknowledged with a shrug, pushing up to the entrance of the diner. "If you don't want to die, fuck off now with the others," Sephi told the nearest group of patrons that were still hiding in cover as she pushed up, doing her best to cover Jack as he moved up to dissuade anyone else from joining the fight. "I'm gonna fucking kill you little shits," the barman roared in anger as he came at Jack with a cleaver. He was the only active combatant left at this point. The rest had been taken down with swift and brutal efficiency by the humans' liberal use of plasma fire, and anyone that was still alive had no intention of joining the fight and incurring the humans' wrath. Shock and awe. "Aegis!" Jack spoke on reflex to summon his shield, but cursed as he remembered it was still with Clan Barzum getting fixed up. Instead, he grabbed a chair in his offhand, unwilling to try and let a shot off when the bummer was caught in between him and a rando that wasn't involved in the fight. Instead, he calmly went for his axe, as the barman charged with a battle cry. Until a quick plasma burst cut the barman down, just as Jack thrust forward with the chair, keeping him well out of harm's way. The barman looked surprised as he fell to the ground, gasping his final breath in confusion at what had happened. "Nice shot," Jack grinned, looking at Sephi, who had quickly moved around into prime position, while he had the barman focused on him. "It certainly was," Allura smiled weakly, making their presence known as the rest of the diner cleared itself of patrons, quickly rushing to their vehicles. "Are you okay?" "We're fine," Sephi sighed. "Wasn't able to secure a ride before Jack pulled me out, though." "And we've got something or someone incoming," Jack warned. "Change your plan then," Nika shrugged, indicating the bodies. "Start looking for keys and make it quick. We'll have to drive ourselves." "Sephi?" Chio asked the Skritter, curiously, as she made her way to the bar. "What are you doing?" "What else would I be doing in this scenario?" The Skritter snorted in amusement, as she pulled out a pouch with some small tools. "This cash register isn't going to rob itself." "Oh," Allura shrugged, remembering the extortion from earlier. "Carry on then."